Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. Picture this. You're driving to work, the radio is on, and suddenly you mentally draft the perfect email to that one difficult client.
Oh, yeah, we all have that client.
Right, exactly. And in that very same moment, you remember, oh, wait, I need to approve a vacation request for my graphic designer by noon. And you realize you never actually sent that follow-up from yesterday's budget meeting.
It just piles up.
It really does. So you walk into your building, you ride the elevator up, you sit down at your desk, you open your laptop, and your mind just goes entirely blank.
Completely empty.
The perfect email is gone, the vacation request, forgotten. You just lost, like, 3 crucial action items because you tried to use your brain as a filing cabinet.
Yeah, and it's a universal professional vulnerability, really. We sort of treat holding a dozen unwritten to-dos in our working memory as this, I don't know, baseline requirement for modern business.
Like it's a badge of honor or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the reality is that relying on active memory to store future actions, it actively degrades your ability to execute the task that is directly in front of you right now.
Well, today's deep dive is centered on completely dismantling that vulnerability. We are examining a really highly practical systems-level approach outlined in an article by Felix Rumer from smartkeys.org.
It's a great piece.
It really is. It's titled, Capture Tasks, Get Them Out of Your Head and Into a Trusted System. And we are going to trace this concept from the individual psychology of offloading cognitive load all the way up to how massive corporations analyze this exact data to restructure entire enterprise workflows.
Yeah, and the premise that Rumor builds upon is that your brain operates, well, it's very much like a computer's RAM.
Right. Random access memory.
Exactly. It is engineered for high-speed, in-the-moment processing. Like when you sit down to synthesize a complex quarterly report, or maybe you have to solve a sudden supply chain bottleneck, your mental RAM is operating at peak capacity.
You're in the zone.
You're in the zone, yeah. But RAM is volatile. It is structurally incapable of reliable long-term storage. So when you try to force your working memory to store administrative tasks, the system just starts lagging.
Yeah. You cannot fully engage in a deep work problem if there is this background process running on a loop in your head whispering, hey, you need to call the printer before 5 o'clock.
Right. That background loop creates measurable cognitive friction. I mean, it causes dropped balls and missed opportunities simply because you hit a wall in your mental bandwidth.
Yeah.
So developing a trusted external system to capture those thoughts, it isn't merely a personal productivity trick. It's really a foundational strategy for staying agile and, frankly, competent in an increasingly demanding digital environment.
The theory is undeniable, right?
Sure.
Clear your mind, improve your focus. But the execution is where the machinery breaks down for most of us. Because building a reliable habit on a chaotic Tuesday requires a specific framework.
It does.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the article outlines what it calls the golden rules of capturing tasks. The fundamental directive is to write the task down immediately, put it in the same centralized inbox every single time, and then review that list daily.
And the success of those rules, it hinges entirely on a structural separation that, honestly, most professionals just completely ignore.
Tell me about it.
The source draws a really hard line between the act of capturing a task and the act of processing a task.
Okay, so what's the difference there?
Well, capturing is a rapid defensive maneuver. An idea hits you, and you create a 3-second placeholder in your system. That's it. Processing, on the other hand, is the administrative work of organizing that placeholder.
Like adding the due date, attaching the relevant PDF, assigning tags, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Moving it to the correct project folder. But people merge the two constantly. An employee thinks of a task, and immediately they open their project management app, they create a new card, they color-code it, they link the dependencies.
They turn a fleeting thought into a 3-minute chore.
Right, which guarantees they will stop doing it. Friction is the absolute death of any new habit. If recording a quick thought requires navigating, 4 submenus, you will naturally revert to just trying to remember it. The rule is strictly record first, organize later.
I mean, I understand the theory of minimal friction there, but let me push back a little on the reality of that rapid capture. If I am capturing 30 tiny rapid-fire tasks throughout the day as I'm bouncing between Zoom calls and in-person meetings, the article suggests I should apply the 2-minute rule during my processing phase.
Right, the classic 2-minute rule.
Meaning, if an organized task takes less than 2 minutes to complete, I should just do it right then rather than file it. But if I have 30 of those little things, my dedicated processing session suddenly morphs into like an hour of doing miscellaneous administrative chores. Doesn't the processing phase just become its own massive distraction?
That is a very real limitation, yeah, if you treat processing purely as execution. But the author's framework prevents that by requiring a really specific linguistic anchor during the initial rapid capture.
A linguistic anchor. What does that mean?
You do not just write down a noun. Like, if you are rushing out of a meeting, you never capture the phrase marketing report. You just don't.
Because that could mean anything.
Exactly. You capture draft marketing report or email Sarah regarding marketing report formatting.
Ah, so using an action verb preserves the specific intent of the task.
It creates instant context. So when you sit down for your daily processing session, you aren't spending all this mental energy trying to decipher what a cryptic noun actually meant. You see the verb, you know the scope.
And what about that 2-minute rule trap?
Right, so regarding the 2-minute rule, the strategy is triage, not immediate execution of every single small item. If a captured item is literally a 30-second email reply, clearing that open loop immediately is highly efficient.
Get it out of the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you have a huge cluster of 2-minute tasks, processing means you batch them. You schedule a 20-minute block on your calendar specifically for those minor items.
Yeah.
The whole goal of processing is just to empty the central inbox, routing tasks to their proper execution zones.
Okay, that makes sense. But that manual discipline, it works flawlessly for a single person at a desk. But the moment you introduce remote teams and Slack pings and shared digital workspaces, a manual text file really begins to show its cracks, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because a massive portion of modern tasks, they don't originate in our own heads anymore. They are thrown at us via chat applications and email threads constantly.
Manual capture definitely breaks down when the volume and velocity of incoming requests scale up like that. And the article transitions from these simple personal habits into the modern tech stack to address this exact bottleneck.
Right.
Now, the baseline recommendation is still simplicity. A synced, lightweight application like SimpleNote, for example, lives on both your phone and desktop. The entire goal there is one tap, one line of text, and a short review.
But the real leverage appears when we look at how messaging apps integrate into that ecosystem. I mean, we spend our days in Microsoft Teams or Slack. In a traditional workflow, if someone asks for a contract review in a chat, you have to read it, open your separate to-do list, manually type out the request, copy the URL of the chat, and paste it so you don't lose the document. It's exhausting.
What's fascinating here is how the modern integrations detailed in the text eliminate that repetitive copy and paste entirely. Through native APIs, you can push a message directly from Slack or Teams into your central capture hub with just 2 clicks.
Wow, just 2 clicks.
Yeah. But the truly transformative element is the introduction of natural language processing and AI summaries at that exact juncture.
So rather than just dumping a chaotic 40-message thread into your inbox, the AI layer acts as an interpreter.
Exactly. The AI scans the back and forth of the conversation, isolates the actual deliverable being requested, drafts a concise action item, and then it automatically appends the hyperlink to the original thread.
That is incredible. You are essentially outsourcing the cognitive load of extracting the task itself.
You really are. The system catches the request, summarizes the intent, preserves the historical context, and just places it neatly in your processing queue.
The text actually highlights Trello as a primary example of how this centralized hub functions, going far beyond just a simple vertical list. It utilizes a spatial environment through its inbox, boards, and planner systems.
Yeah. Trello serves as a visual database. The workflow roamer suggests it sets up a dedicated inbox list on a board. And that is the trusted capture zone where all those AI summarized Slack messages and quick emails land.
Right, the landing pad.
And then, during the processing phase, the user utilizes Trello's no-code automation features, which is often referred to as Butler, to manipulate those tasks without manual data entry.
So you set the logic rules once. Like, if you apply a red urgent label to a card in your inbox, the system automatically assigns a 24-hour due date, tags the department head, and moves the card to the active springboard.
The system is basically executing the administrative routing for you. And the source also points to a feature that's crucial for larger organizations, which is card mirroring.
Right, card mirroring.
In a traditional setup, if the marketing team needs design assets, they create a task on their board, and then the design team creates a duplicate task on their board to track the work. And when the status changes, someone has to update both.
Which, of course, introduces the risk of human error and version control issues. Someone forgets to update their board, and suddenly everyone is confused. But card mirroring treats the task as a single database entry that's just viewed through different portals.
Exactly. The card lives on multiple boards simultaneously. So when the design team moves the task to completed, that status update is instantaneously reflected on the marketing team's board and on the executive overview board.
That's brilliant.
It provides cross-functional visibility, and it completely eliminates the need for any employee to perform duplicate data entry. The whole workflow becomes a continuous, synchronized pipeline.
So we have established how an individual filters chaos and how a team stays synchronized. But here's where it gets really interesting, because the text then zooms out to a macro perspective, examining what happens when a company applies this capture and process philosophy to thousands of employees simultaneously. The concept scales into enterprise task mining.
Yeah, task mining shifts the focus from personal productivity to organizational analytics. It's a huge jump. The article outlines a highly specific 5-step pipeline for an enterprise environment. It goes data collection, processing, pattern recognition, analysis, and finally, optimization.
And the data collection phase means the enterprise software is actually mapping the actual granular interactions an employee has with their operating system as they execute tasks, right?
It is. The software essentially sits in the background of the operating system and just monitors the workflow. Let's look at the pattern recognition and analysis phases, using a practical scenario to make this concrete. Suppose a company wants to understand why processing a new vendor contract takes their procurement team an average of 45 minutes. The enterprise software maps the keystrokes, the application focus time, the copy-paste paths, all of it.
So the system recognizes that the employee is, say, opening an email, downloading a PDF, manually typing the data from the PDF into a legacy CRM, then copying a generated code from that CRM and pasting it into an accounting tool.
Exactly, and it reveals the hidden systemic friction there. The system aggregates that data across 50 employees and highlights the bottleneck for management. And this brings us to the optimization phase.
Right.
The analysis proves that this specific data entry workflow is highly repetitive, it's heavily manual, and it's super prone to error. So it flags the process as a prime candidate for robotic process automation, or RPA. The source actually names the dominant platforms operating in this space right now.
Yeah, tools like Process Maker, Process Intelligence, UiPath Task Mining, Celonis Task Mining, and ABBYY Timeline.
Those are the big ones. And those tools essentially act as an X-ray for corporate inefficiency. Managers no longer have to rely on anecdotal feedback from stressed-out employees saying, this process is broken.
Which is often subjective anyway.
Right. They have actual empirical data showing exactly where the work gets stuck.
Yeah.
And that allows leadership to invest in automation where it will yield the absolute highest return.
The daily invisible friction of a company is translated into actionable business intelligence. But mapping OS-level interactions immediately triggers a massive hurdle, which the article addresses directly, and that is privacy and compliance. Because if an enterprise tool is tracking application focus and keystroke paths, it is sweeping up everything.
Everything.
I mean, an employee might be capturing a note about a highly sensitive internal HR grievance, or drafting an email regarding a medical accommodation, or dealing with confidential client financials. Monitoring that pipeline sounds like a blatant violation of GDPR and standard privacy laws.
This raises an important question, and honestly, it is the most critical vulnerability in task mining. Overcoming it requires both behavioral rules and technical safeguards. Behaviorally, it just returns to that golden rule of minimal capture we talked about earlier.
Okay, how so?
The directive is that initial capture notes must remain entirely neutral. If an employee has a sensitive meeting, the capture note in the general workflow should simply read, like HR follow-up.
So the employee intentionally strips the context from the initial monitored entry.
Yes. The sensitive details are only added later, during the processing phase, directly inside a secure, access-controlled HR or legal application, not in the general task manager.
I see.
But the heavier burden falls on the technical architecture of the enterprise tools themselves. The article insists that organizations must deploy solutions specifically engineered to mask and obfuscate personal identifiable information.
But how does that data masking actually function at a technical level without destroying the value of the analytics? I mean, if you blind the AI, how does it analyze anything?
It does it through local on-machine filtering. Before any interaction data is ever transmitted from the employee's computer to the central analytics server, tools like UiPath utilize optical character recognition and local algorithms to basically blur out names, phone numbers, email addresses, and financial figures right on the screen level.
Wow. So the central server never actually receives the text of the email or the specific numbers in the spreadsheet.
Never. The system only receives the metadata. It knows that the user spent 4 minutes in Microsoft Outlook, transitioned to Salesforce, and executed a copy-paste command.
Ah, I get it. The analytical engine evaluates the structural plumbing of the workflow, completely blind to the water flowing through it.
That's a great way to put it. And that local obfuscation ensures the enterprise extracts actionable process data while still maintaining strict GDPR compliance and preserving employee trust.
That technical safeguard is really what makes enterprise scale optimization possible. But, to bring this entire analysis back down to the ground level, you, the listener, you are going to log on tomorrow morning. And you'll be faced with a barrage of Slack messages, urgent emails, and impromptu requests.
It's inevitable.
Right. And the strategic value of this article isn't just about deploying corporate AI or configuring complex Trello automations. So, what does this all mean for your Tuesday morning?
The core value is reclaiming your cognitive capacity. The author encapsulates the entire philosophy by stating that when you build a system to capture consistently and process deliberately, you, quote, earn trust one finished task at a time.
I love that quote.
Being the professional who never drops a ball, who never has to say, oh, I forgot that minor detail, it builds immense interpersonal capital.
It really does. And the most practical advice the text offers for tomorrow morning is just to reject perfectionism. Do not let the search for the flawless AI-integrated project management tool become a procrastination tactic in itself.
Oh, absolutely. Start with a simple text file or a basic digital note app. Just establish the mechanical habit of writing the thought down the moment it occurs.
Just get it out of your head.
Exactly. The complex integrations and automations, those can all be layered on later as your responsibilities scale. The immediate goal is strictly to stop using your working memory as a storage drive.
It is a deliberate choice to change how you process your professional life.
It is. Which leaves us with a final, broader implication to consider, really. If you successfully implement this trusted system, if every minor follow-up, every tiny administrative chore, and every fleeting idea is securely captured and routed, completely clearing your mental RAM,
Yeah.
what ambitious, complex, and highly creative problems would you finally have the bandwidth to actually solve?
Now, that is something to think about. Thank you for tuning in to the SmartKeys podcast. We really hope this breakdown of Felix Romer's strategies helps you rethink how you manage your workflow and your mental energy.
It's a game changer if you stick with it.
Definitely. Please subscribe to the podcast to ensure you catch our future deep dives into the tools, psychologies, and systems that are shaping modern business. And I highly encourage you to read the full article to explore the specific software configurations and enterprise analytics we discussed today. You can find the direct link to the piece right in the show notes. Stop juggling, build your system, and we will see you next time.